Hello, everybody, and welcome to the halfway point of the UFL season. And through the halfway point, we've had some surprises already, including what happened this past week. Let's waste no more time and dive right into them. We begin at number 8 with the Birmingham Stallions, and it was a tough game for the Stallions, even considering everything that happened before the week. I'm willing to give them a tiny bit of leeway for this game, especially for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. For this being his first game with the Stallions this season and having a very minimal amount of prep for this game and having time to get chemistry with his receivers, he did play okay in this one. Over 300 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns on 65% completion is not a bad stat line, but he did have 2 interceptions, which does muddle it up a bit. Defense did look rough in this game, and that is still a facet of this team that I definitely feel like should be playing a lot better this season, and I'm not quite sure what necessarily is wrong with it, though they have been playing some pretty good teams this past few weeks. They gave up 129 yards on the ground, 275 yards through the air, 6 touchdowns combined between both the ground game and through the air. Jordan Teamu had 4 passing touchdowns in this game. It was a pretty tough one. There was a little bit of a flash in the pan of them potentially being back in this one, but in the end, the DC continues to be the same dominant threat we've known for them this season. Meanwhile, for Birmingham, the downward slide continues. It's another step towards them just simply not being the same Stallions team that we are accustomed to, and we'll see how they finish out the back half of the season. Number 7 is the Columbus Aviators. That was a close loss for them. The offense showed up a little bit in the first half. The defense was on full display pretty much the entire game, especially that second half. But in the end, they came up just short. And this is another example of Columbus simply just beating themselves. They got shut out in the second half. They got shut out in the first quarter. It was a pretty rough showing. But in the end, they left 4 points on the board with Ryan Coe missing an extra point and a field goal. And then with just about 2 minutes left to go in the game, they had that chance to take their first lead, but Jalen McClendon fumbles inside the 10. And from there, it was pretty much all she wrote in this game. And it kind of sucks to see Columbus be a team that's like this because of how much talent is on that roster. But this is now arguably the third game of the season where they have simply just lost due to themselves getting in their own way. This is coming off of a really good win against Dallas last week, and for them to show up like this, trying to build off of that game, it's a little bit disappointing considering just how good this Columbus team can really be if they can just have proper coaching and get out of their own way at times. I still feel okay about Columbus. They do have a rematch against Houston next week, and with how the rest of the back half of the schedule is shaping up, they could go on a bit of a run here. But unless they can get out of their own way, the only team stopping them from that run is going to be themselves, it feels like, and that's a very tough pill to swallow. Number 6 is the Houston Gamblers. A win is a win, even if it's not really that pretty. Houston can definitely build off of this performance that they had, especially from the defense in this one, because again, being 2-3 on the season, you would definitely take that considering how the season started off for the Gamblers. They had 120 yards on the ground in this one. The defense shut out Columbus for 3 of the 4 quarters. They began this game with back-to-back long sustained drives. So that was a really beautiful thing to watch and really impressive to watch as well. Nolan Henderson looked better at times in this game. Still not great as he is still without a passing touchdown on the season, but he has also led them to 2 game-winning drives. So take it as you will. He also does have good mobility as he led the team in rushing this past week. So again, it's a pick your poison type of thing with Nolan Henderson. And you'll take it when, especially since Hunter Dekkers still does not have a timeline for a return. I like the win. They have a chance to sweep the season series with Columbus next week and really propel themselves back to 500. And from there, who knows what Houston can be as a team. But for now, it does feel like they're on the outside looking in terms of being one of the more balanced teams in the league. They're right there, just need to get the passing game a little bit going, and that's weird to say considering the amount of talent they have in that receiver room, but it's always been the quarterback play with Houston, and it continues to be the case. Number 5 is the Louisville Kings, and that was a really impressive showing they had last week. I'm kind of shocked of how well they were able to manage the Dallas offense in this game. They controlled the motion for the entire way of this one. It was a really damn game. Chandler Rogers in his first start with the Kings had 72% completion, and he did not turn the ball over. That's all you could really ask for him in this first start, was just to simply not put your defense into a bad spot, especially with how good the defense was playing in this game. The ground game had his breakout game in this one with 147 yards and Ian Wheeler having 4 touchdowns, which ties a single game record. A really damn good performance from a ground game that has been pretty much non-existent through the first month of the season. Through the full first half, they're starting to show a little bit of progress there. Defense shut down Dallas in one of the more impressive showings we've seen pretty much the entire season for a defense. They picked off Austin Reed 4 times, 2 of them being pick sixes. all of them making him look lost out there. And they're building off of what Columbus did last week as well, which is you get pressure on Austin Reed while containing Tyler Vaughns, and you force him to go through his progressions and you force him to make another play. It does very much seem like this Dallas offense runs through Tyler Vaughns, which can be good at times. We saw that through the first 2 weeks, but also can be really bad. We'll talk about that more in a second here. But from Louisville's end of this was a really damn good game. It kind of also builds onto that blueprint that Columbus set in terms of how to stop Dallas. I'm very impressed in how they played in this game. This is the type of game I was expecting from Louisville from the beginning of the season. So I'm really happy to finally see it showed up here, as they've been one of the few teams that truly looks like they're improving week in, week out in terms of their preparation for games. So I'm really excited to see what Chris Redmond can do going forward as the head coach there. All around, really like Louisville. They come in at number 5. Number 4 is the Dallas Renegades, and the panic is starting to set in Dallas after that game. The concern is also starting to creep up as well. Back-to-back losses for this team that started off the season playing historic levels of offense. It's been a tough past few weeks for them. It does seem like this offense has a very simple way to stop it, though, and that is to make sure that Tyler Vaughns is contained to the best of your ability and get pressure onto Austin Reed. Columbus did it in week 4. Louisville did it this past week, so that means this Dallas offense is going to need to adjust, and they adjust very, very soon. And of course, it is a lot easier said than done to both get Tyler Vaughns open more and scheme him open, as well as get Day Hunter more involved. I feel like that's kind of the piece that can unlock this offense a bit. If you get the ground game established a bit more, you use Day Hunter out the backfield as a receiver, you can definitely create something for this offense, but they need to do it sooner rather than later. Austin Reed threw 4 interceptions in this past game as a very tough showing for someone that just simply 2 weeks ago looked like a surefire lock to be joining an NFL roster during training camp or during the preseason at the very least. Instead, it's a struggle performance that hopefully he can bounce back from. They play DC next week, going to be a very curious game about how Dallas plays in that one, because if they do lose, the panic will fully arrive in Dallas, and they're going to have a really tough showing because their ground game also through the past 2 weeks has not really been the greatest. So with that, they're going to need to find massive improvement soon, as they're probably in for a shootout next week. But we shall see with Dallas. For the time being, they come in at number 4. Number 3 is the St. Louis Battlehawks, and that was a really damn good first half showing for St. Louis. It propelled them to this win, getting out to that early 25-0 lead in this one, even going to the first drive of the third quarter in this game. But they did let up 17 unanswered and allowed Orlando to claw their way back into this one. Again, the first half was exactly the type of game I kind of want to see out of St. Louis. I didn't really expect them to play to that level, but it was still a really damn good game. And if they was only the first half of action, I could be running home St. Louis to a really good spot in these rankings. And then the second half rolled around, and that was a pretty concerning second half for them. But again, they got the win, so we'll see how things go from there. Harrison Frost did play well in this game, aside from the 2 interceptions, which were pretty bad interceptions. But comparing this game to his first game and a half or so with St. Louis, it definitely was a better showing all around. I still just need to see St. Louis be a consistent team and be a balanced team, because it was another game of just them only having really one half of proper play in this one. And this is a team that could definitely be a lot better on the season. They're 3-2 still, and they still have a ton of home games down the stretch, so there's definitely still plenty of time for St. Louis. But it's going to be a very interesting final back half of the season for them if they're going to continue to be this inconsistent. Number 2 is the Orlando Storm. And it was a tale of 2 halves for the Storm in their first loss of the season. But at the end of the day, they still ended up showing that they had some resilience to them. They got shut out in the first half, and that was a pretty rough-looking first half, all things considered. But the second half definitely was more so an all-around performance, as it took all 3 phases of the game in order for them to put up 17 unanswered and claw their way back into this one with a chance to tie or win the game late. The offense eventually was able to move the ball pretty well in this game. The special teams had a blocked punt, which definitely helped them propel to the comeback in this one, and the defense kept them alive in this game pretty consistently throughout the second half. They weren't giving up a lot to St. Louis in that second half. Jack Plummer played okay in this game. The ground game had a solid-ish showing in this one as well on minimal carries that they had. Again, by the second half, they had to start passing the ball a lot. In the end, it was a tight game, and again, Orlando shows resilience. This is definitely a game where I think if they play it again, I could see Orlando winning, and I do want to see this game played again at some point in the future. I'm not quite sure if it is on the schedule again, or if you're gonna have to wait for the playoffs for that one. Either way, a rematch between Orlando and St. Louis would be a really fun watch at later on in the season, and I'm hoping we do get that to some degree. But for now, the Orlando Storm come in at number 2. And at number 1, it is the DC Defenders. Another really good game for DC this week. It is their 3rd game of the season, breaking that 40-point mark on the year. They're one of 2 teams to have a 40-plus point game, and they've done it 3 times on the season. So yeah, they're a really damn good team. They've been showing no remorse to other teams since their week 1 loss to St. Louis. Jordan Teamu had one of his better games of the season so far. This one, 4 touchdowns through the air, 275 yards through the air, 68% completion. All around was a really solid game. The ground game continues to be near unstoppable on the season so far, and with how much of a force it is going to make things a little bit interesting down the stretch. The defense also had an incredible showing in this one as well. They forced 3 turnovers in this game, including picking off DTR twice in this game for his first game with the Stallions. DC has really turned the tide on what the season could have been after the week 1 loss, especially after all the post-game theatrics that happened in that game as well. They've really dug their heads in and have gone full force into making sure that they are shown as the defending champs. And they've done that brilliantly. 4-game win streak on the season after that week 1 loss. They're continuing to just put belt to ass to teams and doing it in a really fun way as well. They play a pretty rough Dallas run defense next week, so I do kind of expect that run game to be even more on display as well. And then plus they have a defense that could definitely make things a bit interesting for Austin Reed, but we shall see when the next week goes up. Again, I'll have predictions going up in a few days to really more so dive into those matchups. But with all that, DC does come in at number 1. Okay, so there you have it. Quick little rundown. Birmingham Stallions at 8, Columbus Aviators at 7, Houston Gamblers at 6, Louisville Kings at 5, Dallas Renegades at 4, St. Louis Battlehawks at 3, Orlando Storm at 2, and the DC Defenders round things out at number 1. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.